Paranormal King Radio Network, bringing you the best paranormal hosts and guests.
Good evening and welcome to Voices Carry. This is Terry Todd, and we have a particularly unusual show for you tonight. My co-host, Miss Amy, are you with us, Amy?
I'm here. How y'all doing tonight?
And I are going to be doing a very unusual show. Amy, do you want to step in and tell folks how it's going to be different tonight and what's going on so that nobody freaks out on us or anything?
Sure. Well, we have a great guest. We have my sister, Amber Kirik, from Key West Paranormal Society. And
although she's not actually a guest.
No, she's not, actually. Tonight, Amber's running the show. So how are you tonight, Amber?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually doing really well.
Thanks for hosting our show tonight.
Not a problem. This is going to be fun.
Yes. It might be embarrassingly fun. Who knows?
No.
And let me just say real quick, the reason for this is we've done this before and had good results with it. And I've had many people want us to do it again, whereby the host brings someone in and they interview the host. So tonight you're going to find out all sorts of things about me and Amy that you probably wondered about, probably a little bit more than you want to know in some cases. And but it's going to be interesting. And if you've ever wondered about Amy and myself, what we're like, what we do, this is your opportunity to find out. We do encourage you that if you have questions, you want to embarrass us or put us out there on ridicule in some way, this is your chance. Go to the chat room and ask your questions, and we'll kind of be watching for that. And I realize I stepped back in, and that's just old habit. I'm sorry. Go, please, Amber, y'all get started and do what you do, please.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you guys, what got you both started in the paranormal field?
Terry, you take that away.
You want me to go first?
Yeah,
okay.
You go first.
Back in the early 1970s, around 1973, my family and I moved from West Texas out to southeastern Arizona. There was a little town called Thatcher, Arizona, right outside of Safford. And again, that's in southeastern Arizona, down where Tucson and that area is. And we had a situation where we moved into this beautiful old house, that kind of a Victorian house. It was red brick, which is kind of unusual for that kind of house, but it was just very interesting. And but I fell in love with it because even as a child, I liked, old-fashioned, old-timey things of that nature. So, and immediately, before we were ever completely moved into this house, there was weird things going on. And we ended up moving in. This house turned out to be quite haunted. All sorts of things took place in that house. I'm not sure how in-depth you want me to go there, but all sorts of things were taking place in this house. Just very odd, unusual things that we knew should not happen. And again, remember, this was back in the early 1970s when people did not discuss haunted houses, ghosts, demons, that sort of thing. And as a young teenager, I was extremely interested in what was going on. So I went down to our local public library. They had one book that was dealing with ghosts and the paranormal phenomena. And that book was by Ed and Lorraine Warren. And that was the very first book I read dealing with the paranormal. I found out basically what was going on in our house. We did not have the capabilities at that time to do anything about it. We ended up leaving after about a year and a half or 2 years. My dad and I loved living there. It was just, something cool and interesting going on all the time. My mother, on the other hand, was not quite so fond of the situation. And so we did end up leaving after about a year and a half or 2 years. And if y'all would like, maybe later in the show or something, I can get into greater detail, but really some really fabulous paranormal type stuff going on in that house. And that was what got me started. And it just kind of grew from that point on. So that's kind of how I got into it and what got me started and why I do what I do today.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love for you to go into more about the creepier aspect or even the cool aspect of what happened to you.
Okay, you
So
want me to do
Miss,
that now, or
um,
does anyone to run?
um,
What scared you there? What was scary there?
there you go. Yeah.
Probably the scariest, the weirdest thing of the scary variety was whatever spirit was in this house, and we're not sure if it was a spirit, a person spirit, or a poltergeist, or what the situation was. But and you got to remember, I was like 12, 13 years old when this was going on. Every time I was alone with this spirit, it would push me down. It would literally knock me down, and that was probably the freakiest, scariest thing, when something that you absolutely cannot see but you can feel it will come up and knock you down, push you down, trip you up, something of that nature. And that was probably the scariest, weirdest type of thing. And there's even a tale to that. Many years later, we went through that part of the country. The house is now gone. They tore the house down. Uh, and it was at some point, and many years later, we were traveling through the country, and I stopped and got out of the car at this house. And again, oh, and by the way, I was the only person this spirit pushed down. I was the only one that it did that to. We stopped, got out of the car. I got up, stood up, and something hit me on the back and pushed me down on the ground. And I was, as a grown man, pretty much at that. The spirit had remembered me from all those years, and as soon as I got in the car, it pushed me down again. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But
It didn't push anybody else, just you?
no, just me.
But everyone else had experiences?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We each had our own different little things that happened to us. I was the only one that got pushed down. Every time we would leave and go to town, and it was a very small community, you'd run down to the grocery store at the corner and be gone, 5-10 minutes, something like that. But every time we would leave that house, every single stitch of clothing would be taken out of my mother's closet and stacked up in the living room floor.
Wow.
Everything that was hanging in the closet would be stacked up neatly in the middle of the living room floor when we got back. And it didn't matter if you were gone 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you were going out of the house for any length of time and came back, every bit of her clothing was taken out and it was only her clothing. It was taken out of the closet and stacked up in the middle of the living room floor.
What do you think that type of haunting was?
Looking back from what I know now, I believe that there was. I do not believe that there was ever any type of demonic type stuff, because the things that we encountered, there was a lot of silly things, a lot of weird, unexplainable, I don't know. And from what I was able to find out about this house, I believe that someone who had lived there at one point did not want to leave that house. And I believe that person or spirit was the entity that was causing all of the problems in that particular house. As we were moving in, in this house, there was this is weird, there was a fireplace in this house, which I thought was so cool, because in southeastern Arizona, it obviously doesn't get very cold or anything, but it had a fireplace in there. And I was out messing around in the yard before we moved in, and there was an old dried up log laying in the yard. God, it had probably been there, I mean, at least 20, 30 years. This old log, it was half buried in the sand. And so I thought it would be cool to take this log into the house and set it on fire. So I dug the log up out of the sand, cleaned it off, took it in the house, put a little bit of newspaper under it, and started a fire. That log burned 24 hours a day for the next 6 months.
Wow.
And did not consume. It just burned continually for the next 6 months. My mom and dad tried to put it out in various ways, and it would just always spurt right back out and come right back to burning, whatever. The first hint that I had that something unusual was going on, my older brother had given me a very large stop sign that he had obviously stolen somewhere. You know how teenagers are, but he had stolen a stop sign somewhere. And I had carried the stop sign into my bedroom, and there was already a little nail thing on the wall. And I put the stop sign, hang it up on this wall, and went out to the truck, something else, and came back in. And as I stepped back into my room, that stop sign was spinning around on that nail, just spinning around and around and around. And that freaked me out so bad. I went and got my dad, and I said, "Come here." He came in there and he saw what was going on, and he went over and put his hand on that stop sign and stopped it where it was dead still, hanging on the wall. And the minute he took his hand away, it very slowly started rocking back and forth again, and it kept picking up momentum each time it would go around, and it eventually started going around and around and around on the nail again. And my dad just took it down, and he said that, it's dangerous for that thing to be, going around and around on the nail. So he took it off, and we never did hang it back up. But that was the very first inkling that we had that something, was not right there. And at that time, my dad was like, we know it could be some sort of magnetic, field or something. It was causing it to move and spin. So, you know how people try to explain things away. And so that's what we attempted to do there. But things just kind of got deteriorated and got more. As I said, it never was very, nothing. None of us were ever injured or hurt or anything like that. It was mostly like just aggravation, 24 hours a day, just things of that nature. My mother, in the dining room area of this house, you could set a cup or a glass or anything in one corner of this table, and it would shoot to the other corner of that table. And just before it went off the other side, it would stop. It would never go completely off the table, but it would shoot like from one side or one corner of that table to the other side or other corner. And just before it went off, it would stop. That's what I said. There was just all kinds of things. It was basically nonstop. There was something going on there all the time. My dad was a farmer when we lived out there. And there was, it's very odd because I was raised in West Texas. My dad farmed in West Texas also, and we farmed out of irrigation ditches where you have water to come down in the ditch and you water the crops that way. But where we lived in Arizona, they had these big canals, these big concrete canals where the water was out there, and you had to go, let the water into the fields and things. And the one thing about these canals, you have to be out there at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, sometime to reset the water levels and things. And I would go with my dad, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to reset the canals. And right behind our house, you would very loudly every night hear music that sounded like the old-timey piano music, like you hear in the movies and the old saloons and stuff. And you would hear that kind of music just every night you were out there. And there was nothing around, no, you're talking miles and miles to the nearest, house, person, whatever. And just out in the middle of nowhere, you would hear this piano music. And I did find out by talking to some people in the area that at one time, very close to that area back, 100 years ago, then that there had been like a saloon in that area, right where you could hear that music so strongly.
So it's definitely residual.
Absolutely.
Stuff attached to that land.
Oh, absolutely.
I would be surprised if looking at the coordinates and that there was ley lines that you guys were on top of too.
That very well could be. I do remember when we first moved into that town, my dad and I went down to the post office to set up the mail delivery to the house. And the guy asked my dad what was our address, and my dad said it was 106. And the guy stopped him, and he said, wait a minute. He said, you got him as you're wrong. And my dad said, no, that's right. And the postman said, no, there's only 2 houses in this town that have 106 in their address. And he said, I live in one, and the other one is that old haunted house out at the edge of town. And so everybody in town knew. I mean, if you were walking down the street, people would cross over to the other side once they found out that that's where you lived. School, however, was fun because all the kids, thought I lived in a haunted house and stuff. But that was the fun part.
I wonder if your house too had been moved. That someone had moved that house from a location with the red brick and the fireplace. How they do that, they put it up on the logs, and you can move the house as if that was if the house had been moved.
Well, from what I understand, I do know for a fact that did not happen because the gentleman who built the house, his last name was Ray. The street was called Ray Lane. The street, and it was named after the gentleman who built the house back. The house, I think, had been built in like 1879 because it had it in the concrete up above one of the windows. And I believe it was 1879, but the house had been built right there on the property by that gentleman. So I do know for a fact that the house was not moved to that location.
Or the bricks were brought in.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about the fireplace. Was it a
Sure.
beehive fireplace?
Explain being a fireplace.
Like the rounded ones?
No, 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 no. This was a regular standard fireplace.
Okay. Well, because when I lived in Tucson, we had one that was a beehive. It was
Hmm.
like built into the family room and it was round and had a good size hearth on it. I think my mom's is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing you're referring to as a beehive fireplace came along much more recently than when this house was built. Because the house obviously would, it had just a regular squared off fireplace, so it
Okay.
probably was patterned on the ones from back east or something. I would have.
I think the beehives came around in the 1950s.
Yeah, probably so. But I mean, it was just there was constantly something.
Like the beehive hair.
Yeah, probably so.
I'm sorry. I had to just throw that in there.
Yeah. But there was just 24 hours a day. There was something constantly going on in that place, and it was really interesting and amazing. And as I said, that's what got me interested, because these things were going on around you all the time, things that you could not see yet. They were happening right there in front of you, and
Yeah.
so
Just human nature to want to figure out what the heck is going on,
yeah,
and
and you know
investigate.
how teenage boys are. I mean, it just that was so fascinating to me. I had to get to the bottom of it and find out what was going on. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
that's very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, absolutely. I talk about it quite often because I want people to understand, that the main thing I try to bring forward about that is just the difference, basically, in what things were like back then and now. Now pretty much if you tell someone you live in a haunted house, they're like, "Oh, cool, can I come over?" And it certainly, it certainly was not that way back in the early '70s. I mean, you were literally people were scared of you. Basically, they thought whatever was there was. Pardon me?
Yeah, definitely stigmatized. I think,
Absolutely.
I mean, it still is in a way. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think it's cool, and then, when you actually are in the middle of something like that, it's terrifying, and it doesn't end, and people are, oh, that's so cool. And when you're actually living, and it's like, no, it's not cool. I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
you don't know where to turn, and these
Hmm.
days it's even harder to turn to your parish, or and find a decent group or whatnot to
Hmm.
investigate and to help you out. I mean, that's the hard part. I mean, like, just finding someone who would believe you that, oh, you're just crazy. I think that's still there. I mean, it still
Hmm.
is. Definitely
I'm sure
still
it
is.
is to some degree. Yeah.
I mean, it's
Uh,
come a long way. Definitely, people are more apt to come in and say, okay, or explain things away so that maybe it is easier to sleep at night.
mhm.
But in the same time, you can't dismiss some of that stuff, because it just, that some of the stuff is just not natural.
Abs-
Oh,
absolutely. And
I'm just sitting there going, this isn't right. I don't think this defies science. I'm sorry.
yeah, and it absolutely rankles me what you just said about the churches and things not wanting to get involved, not wanting to help people, not wanting to do those things. Because it just, I mean, it really, really aggravates me.
That,
Everybody that knows me, knows, anybody that listens to this show, I am a Christian, very much so. And um, I, uh, I don't understand why so many of the churches today do not believe in the spirit world. They have a real problem with dealing with the spirit world. When the Holy Scriptures are literally filled with instances of dealing with the spirit nature world and the supernatural, and I don't understand why the churches have such a problem understanding or dealing with that. I've got Bill Bean coming onto our show, and he can explain it so much better than I can, because he is an evangelist now, and he actually travels around the country, doing evangelism things. And he grew up in a house with a demon, and so Bill is coming on, and he'll be getting into this more so than I can. But it amazes me how people think that their church is the one place where they're safe, the one place where they can get help, and when they're turned away by their church. I just think that that's absolutely incredibly sad.
It is sad.
Oh
Because
yeah.
it kind of goes against like really what
Well,
it should be about. The
well, I think
church. It should
sometimes
help
too,
people.
some churches, it's more of a business in some sense. They've got, and I think that's why a lot of people have shied away from the church, is because it has become a business.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I
and
absolutely agree.
and not getting into that spirituality and helping people. It's about, numbers and bringing that flock in, and they'd rather bury their heads in the sand about, what's going on. Well, it's just mental illness, it's just this, it's just that, and they're not really studying on what needs to be done in cases like that. And you have your small group of renegades like us that really believe in what we research and what we find, and getting answers for people and trying to direct them in the right way. And I think that's what brings people back to religion
I,
and
I,
to their faith, and understanding that you have to have a foundation. If you don't have a
I,
foundation.
I agree with you totally, 100% what you're saying there. And it's and again, people that have heard me talk any length know. I was raised in the Pentecostal Assembly of God churches, and they are very open and very accepting of the spirit world. And I've always been very grateful for that, because, like you said, so many of the churches today, and I get in trouble for saying things like this, but I think a lot of people behind the pulpit in the churches today do not need to be there. I think that they got into it as a business more so than being called to the ministry, to do what they were meant to do. And
Billboard preachers. That's what I like.
absolutely,
Billboard
absolutely,
preachers.
and it
Jesus
just, I mean,
didn't preach to the saved, the people that already believed. He preached to the people that didn't believe,
that's
and
right,
then bring them in and let them feel their faith, and living in that Christ conscious. That's very important. No matter
absolutely,
what faith or religion you believe in, when you believe in love and light, that's what it's essentially all about. But when people have
absolutely,
that darkness and that doubt in their heart, that's when bad stuff creeps in and can wreak havoc. But if you can just bring a little bit of light to someone's life, that's what Jesus was all about.
absolutely.
I would have to say that the paranormal has brought me back to my faith. I
Mm-hmm.
think more so than anything, I had gone pretty much, I don't know, just away, dark, and didn't have a faith, and I
Mhm.
lost my faith. And I think the paranormal has brought that back, because you have to have the good to fight the evil. I mean, you
Oh,
have
you
to
have to have the balance, the yin and the
have to
yang,
have the light to see
And
through
Mhm.
I
the
think
darkness. So
sometimes you have to experience the dark in order to appreciate the light too. There's some bad stuff you're going to happen in your life, but if you're open to that, to allowing the light back in, then your life is going to be a lot better. You can allow, I mean, that's how you let stuff in, and allow the darkness in. You have to let the darkness in. That's it.
That's
But
very, that's
you
very
have
interesting.
that choice. That's one of the
Yes.
things I studied with, especially, and I don't mean to get all Jesus on people, but the Sermon on the Mount, he told
Mhm.
us that we have the power.
Yes,
you
I was
know?
just about to tell you, you didn't realize it, but you were preaching a sermon directly out of the scriptures just now. Uh,
Lord.
be,
way to go, Amber.
because that's
Amen.
what you what you were saying is exactly what Jesus said. And I mean, he didn't say it quite the same way, but it was exactly the same thing. And
Mhm.
and and it blows me away. We're taught that when Jesus comes back, he's going to be looking for two things, and that's faith and love.
Mhm.
And you have to, and I'm going to be honest with you, that's one thing that I really have a hard time. I have a hard time loving my fellow man. I truly do. And it's just because I look around and see what's going on in the world today, and I see that there is no loyalty, there is no, support trying to pick people up. People would much rather tear people down than pick people up.
Because you have to do it too yourself. You have to have love and compassion for
Absolutely.
not just your friends, but for your enemies.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's the most important thing in life, is just having that love and compassion for everyone. That
Absolutely.
hole who cuts you off in traffic, maybe there's something else going on in their life. I mean, we're not all perfect, believe me.
Absolutely.
But you
I,
just
I
I mean,
worked
I'm
in.
perfect.
look for, you have to, of course
Hmm,
you are. You just
I
have
mean,
to look for it. And I think that's one of the things that draws all of us, into the paranormal, is the fact that we are looking for something much deeper, and we've been touched by darkness, but we have that spark of light in our hearts, and we want to help other people so that they don't go through that darkness or see that stuff or explain it to them. I mean, there's a scientific and there's spiritual, and I think the two of them need to come together in order to have balance. That's just my opinion.
and I think they do. More and
Absolutely.
more science is discovering that what we read in the scriptures are absolutely true. I mean, and even history's backing it up. Science is backing it up. It's very interesting how people who set out a lot of times trying to disprove the scriptures end up doing the opposite. And I do not want this to be a program about religion. I've never wanted that for
But
our show, but
I think,
it's part and parcel of what we do. You cannot
but I,
talk about the paranormal without bringing it in.
right, and absolutely, and I don't think it's about religion. I think it's about spirituality, and whatever you may call it, or what, the light, the love, the Christ conscious,
Mhm. Absolutely.
Buddha, whatever. It resonates with all of us within when we're looking into the light. I mean, because the dark is the dark. It just is. And without the dark, you don't have the light. And without the light,
Hmm.
you don't have the dark. It's a balance in life. And it's finding that balance within all of ourselves. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to the paranormal, is just helping people understand that you don't have any control, but you do, in a
Hmm.
sense, and just letting go and understanding that sometimes it's just our own energy that's really screwing us all up.
Hmm.
You just,
Absolutely.
that's it. You're bringing in, I guess they would call it poltergeist or whatever, into your life. And it's not always demonic. It very well could be if you're messing around with the dark arts trying to bring about control or have
Hmm.
control.
Hmm.
So once you see that, then you know who to call. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with that
Absolutely.
nonsense.
we got people for that.
I got somebody for that.
I know a guy.
There isn't enough sage in the world for you, sweetie.
Loud.
I am just gonna protect myself and just pretend this didn't happen. I'm gonna send you the best. But at the same time, you can keep sending this stuff to these people, and if they want it in their life, it's going to keep continuing to happen. So,
Hmm.
thank you for that. That was great.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, it's
It's
I'm
part of
just
it, Terry. Don't fight it. Don't fight it. We gotta spread the good word. We
I,
have to. We have
I
to
could sit
spread
here
the
and
good
talk
word.
about this for the next 6 or 7 hours straight through. I mean, honestly, and
If people don't like it, they can tune out. That's
yeah,
how I feel. It's like, you want to tune out, but I think one thing is accepting other people's paths. Everyone has a different path, but the way they get there should be through love and light.
hmm
That's just my
people get hung up on the little bitty things,
I like
and
cats.
dogma. It's all about dogma.
absolutely, absolutely, and I like the way you said dogma, um,
That's because
but
My
it
Yankee
is
cousin.
she's the Yankee.
yeah, and and I have said this before. The way Jesus Christ, His Son, is the only way that we have to get to heaven. I also believe that those are the only things that we can be absolutely sure of. I think everything else is kind of up for grabs, and
Mhm.
people do get hung up on the little bitty things and make a big big mountain out of a molehill so many times that people get disgusted and say, well, I'm not going to even mess with that because that, this person thinks that little bitty thing means so much. It's got to be screwed up somewhere, and they turn their back, and that's really sad. But okay, I'm sorry. We can, move on and do something else, but,
Amy, how did you get started in the paranormal?
Because I like ghosts. No.
So simple.
Because I
your
just
parents
like them.
said boo in the crib or something, right?
I just like them, But no, growing up, I know that I played with some friends that no one else could see, but I could very vividly see them. But you're told when you're a kid that oh no, you got your imaginary friends. That's so cute.
Yeah.
But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they're not so imaginary.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's things like that you can't explain. You put things in certain places and then they're not there when you come back. And then you find them somewhere random that it shouldn't be. That kind of thing and you just learn to, I guess, get used to it. I guess
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something you could talk about. But I read every ghost book I could find in the library, ghost stories, books about, the Old West and things like that. You know, sort of, I grew up in Tucson. I spent most of my childhood in Tucson, Arizona. And I think I'm sorry, I'm outside and a car just drove by. I just should apologize for being such a redneck, but I'm sitting outside because it's lovely out. Um, but you grow up and you think that you're weird and you don't quite fit in. And then you try to tell your friends about it and then they think it's weird and then they think you're weird and then you're the weird kid. So I think kind of I always grew up the weird kid because knew things that other kids didn't seem to acknowledge like I did. I mean, every once in a while you could find somebody that understood, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then it seemed like every house that we lived in had some sort of different type of haunting. And I don't know if it's because of me. Is it something that I bring around? Is it just the houses that were chosen? Is it just, I mean, there were a couple that nothing happened. But as I became an adult, I noticed it, I guess, more. And this last house we lived in was built near Kennesaw Mountain, and it was built back in the 50s.
Oh, that house was creepy.
I loved that house.
There was a man in that house that would, he watched me when I came over.
I
Oh,
think
he gave me
you're
the
talking
creeps.
you're talking about in
On
Kennesaw.
Lacey Street.
On Lacey
No.
Street?
Yeah, remember?
Yeah, and that was Zach's buddy. And
yeah, he didn't like the fact I was sleeping in Zach's room. I remember because I had my head underneath the covers for half the night. I was scared. He kept watching me.
well, there were a couple times that I went and slept with Zach because he was scared. And I mean, he was what, 4, 5?
Yeah.
5, I guess, maybe when we moved there. And he would get scared and he would be like, somebody watches me.
He was definitely a watcher. He was a watcher. He had quite the presence about him, though.
He
I mean,
did.
enough for me to be like hiding underneath the covers because I could feel him like staring at me, and I'm just like, "Oh, go away, go away, go away!" I'm just visiting.
It was really only in Zach's room.
Yeah.
But I had 2 episodes of psychic paralysis while sleeping in Zach's room. And
Of psychic what?
paralysis,
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah, my wife has that, or she hasn't done it lately, but she used to suffer from that quite a bit.
it's terrifying. And it started lived in Kennesaw, and then we moved to Marietta, and it was something different, I think, in Marietta. But it was I lived right by a hospital that had been around since the 50s or 60s, and you're right by the square. Where some Civil War stuff went down, and the Kennesaw battlefield you could look out my front door and see Kennesaw Mountain.
Yeah, definitely that land was definitely hot. It was a hot
And
I mean, no matter where you went on that street, you were gonna be inundated. Every freaking house there probably had a creeper.
oh yeah, I mean, talking to our neighbors, we became friends with Marcus next door, and they had the same type of stuff going on. But I mean, we had things like where it sounded like, I think within the first week or two of us moving in, where my husband and I were both in bed, and we heard what sounded like a whole shelf of glasses shattering, is what it sounded like. And I'm like, oh crap, really? And they had just replaced all the cabinets in the kitchen. I'm like, maybe it was not. And we got up, so we're up and we're flipping on every single light in the house looking for what's broke. I have cats too, so cats do destroy things sometimes. But I'm looking around, the cats are acting fine, and nothing's broken. We're all walking around flipping on lights in our underwear looking for, something. And there was nothing. There was nothing broken. There was nothing out of place. It was just this whole loud sound. So I started questioning the neighbors shortly after that. Have you ever heard about anything, happening? Has anyone ever died in this house? And sure enough, someone died in our bedroom. And but not in a violent way. He was a chef and he had some health issues, and I think he probably, had a heart attack or something like that. And so we had an episode with the stove where I woke up, went into the kitchen to get ready, and the oven door was open. And so I went to Ken. I was like, "That's not funny. Are you trying to scare me?" Like, why is the stove open? I'm like, "Did you do that?" He's like, "No. Why would I open it?" Because I was the first one to get up, and nobody would have been up. So, I mean, it was weird things in that house. You would lay down at night and you would hear what sounded like the TV was on. And you get up, make sure everybody's TV was off because everybody should be in bed, and nobody's TV's on. But it's like a whole TV
Like chatter.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, chatter
And
in the background.
my husband, who's a huge skeptic, he's like, I'm like, do you hear that? Or is it just me? He's like, no, I hear it. He's like, I hear it a lot. I'm like, okay. He goes, like, it sounds like the TV's on. I'm like, yes. He goes, yeah, I hear it all the time. Okay. Another
And you
night.
don't find that weird? No, not at all.
Yeah. And then it seems like it would pick up right before I would go on an investigation. Like one night before we did a house that was on the Kennesaw battlefield, and an old farmhouse that was being redone. That night, we were both laying in bed, and our bedroom door flew open. Now we have cats. Cats push the door open. They kind of nudge. It's not a full on. This was a full on, like somebody put their hand on it and pushed it open. And so Ken sat up and looked around, and there were no cats. And he's like, "There's no cats in here." I was like, "Okay. Did you see that?" He goes, "Did you see that?" Like, yep, I saw that. He's like,
And he's still skeptical about these things.
he maybe not as much as he was, but yeah, I think he's still kind of a skeptic.
I think it's good though to always be a little skeptical
Oh,
because
for real.
because if you have an imagination like mine, then everything's woo.
It's rainbows.
There's no
Butterflies,
explanation for anything.
unicorns.
But yeah,
Well-
you have to be a little skeptic, I think, because
Well, again, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
No, otherwise, your imagination will get the best of you, and you can really start to make some things happen yourself. So you have to like sit down and kind of logically go through everything and explain it through just the noises you hear, on a regular basis. But when you can't go through and tick through your brain what it could be, then it might be something.
I got to butt in for a minute because I don't know if he's getting ready to leave or not, but I just wanted to say hi to my daddy. And thank you for trying to join us tonight. He's been listening, but he couldn't get in chat. I don't know if he's getting out now. I don't know. But anyway, thanks for joining us.
Woohoo!
Sure.
Thanks, Dad. Woo!
Woo! Okay, sorry. I'm done. I'm done. But yes, you should be a skeptic, especially when you're going into someone else's home and what they're saying is happening. I mean,
because for them, everything's amped up. Everything
yeah.
is something paranormal. It's like, no, that's just your fan turning on. You might want to check your wiring.
But it's like you
air
said. It's like
conditioning
you
I
said a while
think is
ago.
poisoning you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like you said a while ago. You have to have balance,
Yeah.
because I have seen people go the other way where they were totally ridiculous trying to debunk everything.
Yeah.
So again, it's you have to find that balance, and and I don't believe there's demons behind every bush and be under every dish rag, but I do believe that there is a certain amount of stuff going on, and if you set out to debunk everything, you end up making yourself look foolish, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's certain things that you can debunk, but at the same time, I think a lot of the energy is used through when you have high EMFs or bad
Hmm.
electrical stuff. I really personally believe that that is a conduit of stuff happening. And when you
Indeed,
have
yes.
really high stuff going on, yeah, electrical magnetic poisoning or whatever that might be happening, yeah, but that's the reason why you're probably hearing and seeing and being pinched by stuff, is because it's using that energy field to make contact with you, because it can't just always drain you. So if it
Hmm.
has a good EMF, where it has a house where it can and do that kind of stuff, then yeah, that's one of the first things I'll tell people is like, why don't you have an electrician out here and get some of this? Because, stuff runs on energy. And if you have it leaking out of everywhere, you're going to have stuff coming in, unwanted stuff.
Yucky stuff.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you can. And then the other thing too, a lot of people automatically want you to like sage their house and get rid of everything. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like this isn't demonic or anything. Once you sage and get rid of everything, we've gotten rid of everything. There might be something hanging around here that might be saving your butt.
For real.
you know, it's like, take a minute here.
But I mean, but honestly, and to get rid of every single thing, you have to dig deep into your little bag of tricks. I mean, there are things that you very, very seldom hear being used, because these things will absolutely get rid of everything. And so those are things you really have to be careful with. Um, Tar water, black salt, those type things. That you don't hear about those very often, because they are quite powerful things, to use, and you really do have to be careful. We are coming up. It's 8:15. It's time for our midway break. Do you guys want to go ahead and do that now?
Sure.
Okay. This is Terry Todd along with Amy Farley and our special host interviewer tonight. And Amber, tell me how to say your last name. I always have trouble.
No, it's all right. Kirik.
Kirik. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Amber Kirik is our special guest in interviewer tonight. We will be back in about 4 or 5 minutes, so you may want to get up, walk around a little bit. I can't believe how fast this show is going. And you guys just take care. Be back with us in a few minutes. Thanks for listening to Voices Carry. We'll be right back.
Come on back, y'all.
This is your favorite paranormal radio show right here. And this is Terry Todd along with Miss Amy Farley.
Hello, hello.
And we have our special interviewer, guest interviewer, I guess you would say tonight, Miss Amber Kirik. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Kirik.
Yes, Kirik.
Got it right. Okay. I remember when I was making a banner, I misspelled your name like 4 or 5 times, and for some reason I kept putting an extra K in there. It was like Kirkick or something. But
Yeah, I did that too when I first got married, and I put my name out, and my father-in-law messaged me and told me I spelt my last name wrong. I was like, oh my god.
oh God.
It's actually spelled the same forwards and backwards. Kirik, Kirik.
Oh wow. It's like
Mm-hmm.
someone named George. Their name is never completely finished. Geor, Geor, Geor. But anyway, I'm crazy tonight. But,
As opposed to not on other nights, or
well, as opposed to 10 minutes ago. So would like to say hi to some people in the chat room. Mark Nishi, my friend from Scotland, is there. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Amelia. Hello, Amelia. CC Paranormal Team. I believe, I don't know if it's Captain, CCPT Gary. Ghost Gretchen, how are you doing, sweetheart? DH, Miss Karen, our buddy that's always there, and somebody named Terry. I don't know who that is, but anyway, hi, welcome to y'all, and glad everybody's here. Where were we? Did we leave off on a strange note, or do we need to just fill back in and jump on, or
Well, I just
have no
want to
questions?
just do a little shout out to
Sure.
Karen's cat. Snuggles.
Yes, absolutely.
Snuggles, he had a procedure done today. So prayers and good energy for Snuggles, everyone, please.
Yes. When will we know how Snuggles is doing?
That I don't know. I'll wait for a text from
Okay.
Karen.
And
But yeah. So prayers and good energy for my Snugs. I love him. I love my little fur nephew.
yes, we have been thinking about Kitty Snuggles, and we sure have. And I really feel for you and Paul and the boys. So please let us know how things are going there. Okay.
The end of the week. She said they'll know by the end of the week.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be looking forward to that with high hopes and grateful hearts.
Yes. Okay, so go with the flow, Amber. This is your show.
All right. Woo, it's my show.
Indeed.
All right. No,
Watch out, world.
I
Got
want
a
to
power
know.
trip going.
No power trip. I promise. Like I love to read. I just love getting my hands and reading other people's experiences and learning from that and listening to great radio shows like y'all's and other radio. It's just that you learn so much from that. And I want to know, what are some of the books that you guys read or that just really held with you and that you would love to pass on to other people so people could read and gain more knowledge about this field.
Wow. Wow.
Woo!
Oh, Lord.
Get you?
You got me, but I'm gonna first
Did
of
I
all
take your pants off?
yes. Secret is out. I would have to. I don't know. This is hard to pinpoint. Like, okay, House of Darkness, House of Light, hands down.
Yeah, I think that was one of your big ones. Yeah.
That was and then I do love Shadows of the Dark, which is John Zaffis's book.
Oh, of course you're going to love his books.
Well, duh. Since I have a problem.
It was John Zaffis' problem.
Now all my secrets are getting out.
That was the point of this show, wasn't it?
Oh, I guess so. But yeah, so I just remember like one book I always used to check out of the library when I was in elementary school was that book, Scary Stories We Tell in the Dark.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it was all, obviously it was stories, but it's something that you read. Oh, I thought of one. Gravesend. Didn't I give you that book to borrow, Amber? Gravesend. That was a good one.
No, you didn't. I'll have to write that one down. Gravesend.
But yeah, what about you, Terry?
Interesting question. I have a lot of people that send me books and want me to read. There's, of course, anything by Ed and Lorraine Warren, anything by John Zaffis. Those are going to be good, informative books. I do have a personal favorite that many people have probably not heard of. And I'm a little bit on the outer fringes of things from time to time, but there is a man, his name is Dr. Walt Brown. He is a retired Air Force colonel. He has so many degrees that, it would take you 10 minutes to write down all the college degrees he has and his references, resume, whatever. I mean, this man is utterly amazing. One of the most intelligent people that you will ever encounter, Dr. Walt Brown. He wrote a book a few years back called In the Beginning. And the reason I find it so fascinating is that he has scientifically explained in this book, and it's way too complicated for me to do here in the time allotted, but he has scientifically proven that the world that we live in could have indeed been created in 7 days. And I mean, we're talking the Grand Canyon formed in 7 days. Everything that you know about the earth, the world, formed in 7 days, just like the Bible tells you that it was. And you may think that that's crazy and insane. If you read his book and find out what he's about, you will see that it makes sense. And there is absolutely, that is absolutely a possibility. That is my personal belief because I believe the Bible. But if you've never read the Bible, have no belief system whatsoever, you will read Dr. Brown's book and say, "Oh my gosh, it happened that way," because it does make sense. So that has got to be one of my favorite books of all time. I'm going to just push it one more time. In the Beginning by Dr. Walt Brown. So. That is one of my favorite books. And again, as I said, if you're more interested in the paranormal and things of that nature, absolutely anything by Ed and Lorraine Warren, John Safis.
The Myrtles Plantation. That was a good one too. Sorry, I had a moment.
Oh, no problem.
ADD.
No problem at all. Did somebody in particular write a book about the Myrtles, or is
yes,
this just?
And I can't think of who it is. It'll come to me probably in a moment, much like the last one.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, it's amazing. I remember Dr. Walt Brown because you know how my memory is, but that is something that's truly fascinating. So, that's pretty much it. There are not many people. Now, I have a much longer list of people in the paranormal that I think are full of it.
Oh, Lord.
And I will not get into any of that here. Let's just suffice it to say that the good stuff is the Warrens and the Zaffis and things like that. I really have.
If you have that power of discernment,
Pardon me?
I said when you have that power of discernment, anything that you pick up and you start to read, you can realize that it's a crock of pooey.
Absolutely.
And then you're kind of like, oh God, not this again. And then there's other stuff you pick up and you're just like, if it makes you question and you start to think, that's a good book in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can take something away from it, because I think everyone can read something and takes their own piece of it away from them, and I think that, and it helps you,
Mm-hmm.
if you believe everything you read, you're just silly.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you a little rundown real quickly. Gretchen just posted some things. She put Destination Truth by Josh Gates. Josh has been a guest on this show. That's a good book. That would be good. I like Josh. The next person she mentioned, a load of crud. Don't worry about that.
Frances Carmine.
The Heidi Warwick story. I'm glad that she put up the Heidi Warwick story because I didn't know who had written a book about that. And she said it's by Joyce Cathy. Also, the Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology by Rosemary Ellen Guiley is excellent. Excellent. Yep, if you have an interest in demons or demonology.
Definitely have that one. The one that really, really set me going was, I think, the Ed and Lorraine Warren's Demonologist. Is that what it is called? I think it was called Demonologist.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, that book, I think every paranormal person
absolutely
in that field needs to read that book. Like that book, it hits you. And it helps explain a lot. It helps you understand, and it really gives you a really good outlook on it. I think that should be like your go-to book for everyone who wants to get into the field, has an interest.
Absolutely.
If you haven't read that book, then yeah, you probably don't have an interest in it.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask real quickly. Gretchen just put up and she said Joyce Cathy is her aunt. Whose aunt? If you could tell me, Gretchen, whose aunt Joyce Cathy is, I'd appreciate it because it's kind of hanging out there on its own, and I'm not sure.
Her aunt?
But anyway, we'll get back to that. So, Heidi Warwick's aunt. Okay.
I have another question for you guys.
Yeah.
Are you?
So
okay, sure.
I wanted to know, what what is your most, how do I put this? Where would you guys love to go and investigate? Like, what is the top of your list of investigations to do?
Tombstone
Tombstone?
or Bisbee. Yeah.
Just one, Amy. I just said
Sorry.
one.
Sorry. You know I don't follow directions. I am not the direction follower.
So Tombstone. How about you, Terry?
Anywhere in Jefferson, Texas. Jefferson, Texas is one of the most haunted towns in the United States. The whole town is reeling with spirit activity. So any building, any home, any building in Jefferson, Texas, I would love to go to. So that's one of my wants to some days. I've been to Tombstone. Spent a lot of time at Tombstone when I was younger. But I've never done any sort of investigating there. So that would be interesting as well.
Yeah.
I think not only does the paranormal and the spiritual, but you're also kind of a bit of a history buff too, because the history of places draws you to that, and the residual energy that's there that there's like here in Florida, there's just so much stuff here in Florida between the Indians and the settlers and the Civil War, and just to go and just the land itself is living, and full of energy. I just love that personally. Yeah, I do.
Personally.
I don't know if anybody else saw it or not, but I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We had Brian Cano on the show, or Cano, and he just spent several days in Tombstone, posted a whole bunch of pictures on Facebook.
I know, I'm so
Tombstone.
jealous.
And it really, really clicked memories with me, because nearly every picture that he was posted, I've been there, seen what was in these pictures stuff, and it was just really fascinating. And I've not had the opportunity to take my wife there, so I was showing her some of these pictures that Brian had posted.
I love the cemeteries.
Yeah. I used to spend a lot of time at Boot Hill there in Tombstone, and places like the Birdcage Theater and so on. So much of that stuff now, the places like the Birdcage Theater, the Crystal Palace Saloon, those places have been built up and done up for the tourist, that it's really sad sometimes to see, some of the things that they've done trying to attract tourists and stuff in there. But there is enough real history there to make it fascinating.
Well, that's why we go after dark, so we don't have to deal with the living.
Yeah. Amy, when you lived out there, did you ever get out to old Tucson where they filmed all the movies and stuff?
Oh, yeah. I remember going there as a kid. And then I moved away. Let's see, I was probably in 5th grade. Moved to Florida for a while. Moved to California. I ended up in my adult years back in Tucson. I just wanted to go back home. Yeah. So yeah, it's a cool place to go, and just to see the sets, and I mean, it's fascinating. It's fun. I worked at a bar that was kind of on the way to. I used to be a bartender in my younger days, but I worked at a bar that was kind of on the way, but it was an old building that the bar was in, and it was really cool. It wasn't a place you really wanted to be once the lights were out, especially. I don't know. It was. You didn't want to be alone, especially in the kitchen of the bar. It was creepy.
Wow.
But, I mean, so much history there. There's so much energy. And
Indeed. And I'm going to go ahead and throw something out here that people that are listening may be interested in hearing, because I don't think we've talked about this on the show. And this is fascinating to me. I live right now in southeastern Alabama, and Amy lives over outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We've not encountered each other as adults. We've not met or anything. But an interesting little tale, through talking with each other, we have discovered that I lived in Wilcox, Arizona, which is about less than 100 miles from Tucson, when Amy was born. When Amy was born, I lived less than 100 miles from where she was born. And so I just thought that was fascinating, that all those years ago we were that close together, and then here we are doing a show together all these years later. But
it's weird how energy works that way.
It does. It really does.
A city.
Now, I was only about 10 or 11 years old. I don't want to seem like I'm an old fuddy-duddy or anything, but but I lived about it's actually, I think, about 70 miles from Tucson. So I lived about 70 miles away from Tucson when Amy was born in Tucson. And I always just thought that was so interesting and fascinating and cool, and put anybody else to sleep, but I thought it was interesting. So
It is.
Yeah, no,
Thing.
Arizona is one place that's on my list to go. Anytime I plan vacations, they have to be haunted locations. My husband doesn't dig that all the time, but whatever.
yeah. I was talking to Amy here the other day. We used to, when we lived in Arizona, would go a lot to Tombstone. We'd go to Tombstone just about every weekend, me and my parents. That was way back before I got married. It was me and my parents. And there's a little bitty town between Wilcox and Tombstone called St. David, Arizona. It's a fantastic little town. It's out in the middle of the desert, and it's like this little oasis where there's trees and grass, and it's just a beautiful little town. You're traveling along the highway, and it's 115 degrees and all this, and all of a sudden you're in this cute little green valley where everything is green and warm, and and cool and lush, and there's a little creek that runs through town. It's just this beautiful little place. So if you ever get out there and you ever have a chance to pass through St. David, Arizona, you'll be glad you did, because it's just one of the coolest places on earth. This message has been paid for by the St. David Chamber of Commerce.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I'm a bug. So I have a question that Karen sent me. So this is from Karen, and she wants to know where do we both hope to see the paranormal field in 10 years?
Ooh, Karen, very good. I had that on my list.
Magic.
That is interesting.
Ouch. Sorry. I would hope to see more unity. I think I would like to see less of so much. There's so much backstabbing. There's so much.
Oh, it's all middle school sometimes, you feel. God, you think you get out of it, but it's there. But yeah, I think the unity, I think that just opens up the doors for us. We have to be open to the unity.
Yes. And
once you are, it starts to happen, and the right people get attracted into your life. I mean, look at you, Amy. Look where you're at. Terry, look where you're at. Just opening the doors and being able to talk to people and their ideas and stuff. I think you guys do a great job at that.
Thanks.
No, really.
And by the way, I'm going to take a minute and tell Amber, you are doing a heck of a job tonight with this show. I'm very, very pleased. And it's a real treat to have you here, and you're extremely professional, which I don't know why that it's not really surprised me, since I didn't know what to expect or not. But I'm really glad
because her sister's so goofy.
No, not at all. But it's just I'm trying to pay you a compliment. I think you're doing a heck of a job, and I'm really proud of you. So
I listen to you a lot. I listen to you guys a lot. Terry, you and I, Terry, we have a lot in common. We do. The way that you view things and see things, you got to open your mind to everything. That's what I believe personally, is that, you can't just put somebody down for their religious beliefs or whatnot. You have to be open to everything.
Yeah.
And once your heart is open and you're going to get hurt. Yeah, granted, but that just makes you love more. And when you have your personal beliefs and you hold strong to that and they don't waver, I find that important in our profession. It's just to have that strong faith. That's
cool.
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I think there would be so much more if people would just come together.
Well, because it's their egos. Everyone
it is.
Egos.
It is.
Oh, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be rich and famous. Go ahead, be rich and famous on a TV show. Granted, the producer's going to be making more money than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's just be authentic, be yourself. Go out there and do things to help other people and lift other people up. I think in all you do in your life, that's just what I believe. Just lift people up.
Absolutely.
People get smacked like ants all the time. Why do you got to be that person?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you get angry. get mad, whatever, but you know, you move on. Don't
Yeah.
resonate in it.
And
Otherwise, the other side wins because they want that negative energy. They feed off that. That's their
absolutely,
food. Give it to them. Go ahead, give it to them, and you're gonna keep feeding them. But you put that light and
absolutely,
love out there in the world.
absolutely. I agree
Definitely.
100%. And getting back to your question, I do agree with Amy. The unity thing is something that desperately needs to be dealt with and put back in place. I would like to see a great reduction in the number of crappy paranormal television shows. And
Well, as long
um,
as you crappy producers out there
yeah,
feeding
I
Playboy
understand.
bunnies to run around naked,
Yeah,
Oh, I
while
love that email we
investigating
got about.
places, like, good Lord Almighty, come on, like,
yeah.
Yeah, Southern Paranormal got that invitation. Do you want to? Really,
oh,
people
you
don't
just,
want to see that. They really don't want to see that.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be sitting in no rickety old house with no clothes on. Where the heck are you going to sit, and where are you going to put your mag light?
Exactly. And then you have to think about the spiders. And spiders are going to crawl and they're going to get, oh no, I'm good. No, no. And people don't want to see that.
Dust spiders. Oh Lord.
Oh dear Lord. Yeah.
Well,
That just doesn't sound very sanitary.
I'd be like, no, I'm not crawling into that hole naked. You can do that yourself. Good luck fitting in there. Have you seen half of us?
and
Oh man.
Yeah, that's just not.
and you can tell the quality of the television program, the paranormal are just, I mean, going down the toilet week by week by week.
I have to say where it started. I remember what I watching gosh, the Roto Rooter guys back in the day. You know, this
Mhm.
was like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And they would do homes and they would do whatever. And I respect their work. Grant and I can't think of his name right now.
Jason.
But you know, Jason and Grant, you know, they and they still have a lot of respect for the field and they still bring a lot of respect.
Mhm.
And those were the guys that I watched
Mhm.
from the get-go, you know, the beginning. And then you have your other, you know, shows that would come on and it's pure TV's entertainment.
Uh-huh.
It is entertainment. And if you believe everything you watch on TV, you're just nuts. It's just
Absolutely.
entertainment, there for entertainment purposes. You know, you can learn some things and you can find out and do your own research, but you have to be smart enough to do your own research and find out things. And that was one of the things I loved about that show is that, you know, they did a lot of home investigations and then it got away from it. They still do it, but you know, the TV show just didn't, the producers didn't put that on film. And he talks about that, you know.
Yeah.
We do, and you know, we can only choose so much, and they put on what they can. We still do the personal investigations, because I think that's where it resonates. You know, you can do the big investigations and you can go into these haunted locations and you can be charged ungodly amounts to go and investigate these places because somebody's making money. But at the same time, you know, where we start is in people's homes. We're invited into people's homes to make a difference and to help them understand as to what's going on, you know. And you keep to that. You have to keep to that. Otherwise, you get, you know, I want to say jaded, you know, because you're all about your ego. There you go. Your ego gets in the way.
There you go.
Once your ego gets in the way, you know, it's a downfall. If you think you're going to make money off of doing some show, the producers are making way more money. You know,
That's
write a
right.
book.
And
Write a book if you want to make
there's
money.
There's one guy that has a paranormal show on right now. I'm not going to say his name. If anybody listens to me, they know who I'm talking about. That has 2 pet monkeys that he takes with him just about on these investigations and stuff. And this guy should not be on television. Absolutely not.
Who's taking monkeys to an investigation?
Oh, I was referring to his 2 friends that go along with him.
I was thinking that too. I was like, wow, that's a good idea.
They're like pet monkeys. So, and it really irritates me because I hear, especially women, oh, he's so wonderful. I love him. I watch his show all the time. And he is putting so much garbage and so much crap out there that people are like just shoveling in.
At the same time, though, Terry, I believe that's one of the shows I do watch for entertainment purposes. He's on the Travel Channel. He's on the Travel Channel. He's there to make money for those places to go in, and he has to hype up and do whatever. When they first got into it, they were for real too, but you know, they like them because they're characters. Everyone wants a character on
Well,
TV.
but at the same time, there's people that are sitting at home that have a real
Well,
interest in the paranormal that are trying to, learn things and watch this and pick up information. And the stuff they're putting out is just not
I believe that
good for that. So
absolutely, but if you're really going to get into the paranormal, if you're just watching a TV show, then you're just a joke.
that's right. You need to stay away from television.
In bottom line, like I said, TV's entertainment. That's what it's all about. It's entertainment.
There are some good stuff on there, like people like John Zaffis and Ralph Sarchi, people that should be doing television shows. Pardon me?
Those TV shows don't last very long because they're real.
I know. Because they are real.
There's only so much they can put on, and you have to have the entertainment value in order to bring sponsors in to make money. It's all about making money, with the TV
and
show.
now see if these guys put a disclaimer that said this is purely for your entertainment, don't watch this to learn anything, I would be fine with that. I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact that they're up there pushing this as real paranormal, that's what irritates me about it.
Well, yeah, because then you bring goofy groups in that go in and
right. And if you haven't done it, you don't realize this was all compacted into 1 hour.
Yeah.
In reality, it's much longer than that, and it's much more boring. There's a lot of sitting in the dark and talking to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I think one of the newer paranormal programs has these black guys that are going for ghosts. I mean, what's next? Fat Scotsman looking for ghosts, or I mean, they're
it's all
going to
be entertainment. It's what
I know.
It's making money.
Yeah, exactly. Because some of the stuff I found on YouTube and stuff, it's like, wow. And some of the people that contact us, I'll go in and I'll look at these producers' bios and what they've produced, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's wow. No, please don't. I'm not contacting them. Please don't give them my name. I don't want to be on TV like that. I don't want to be pimped out like that. I'm not doing this to be pimped out. I'm doing this because I want to actually help people. And I think that's where our paranormal unity needs to come in,
We have to be back to helping people.
And ignore the ego people, Yes, and one thing I have to say, some of the bigger shows like the guy and his 2 monkeys, they do get people thinking, oh my God, if someone's sitting there and something's going on in their house, or something's going on, they're like, okay, this is happening, who do I contact? And then they start Googling stuff and doing their own investigation, and finding the people that can help them and getting in and then getting answers. It does help, but at the same time, we know who the jokes are and who aren't, and who have relevance in this field, and who've been here for the long haul. And there have been a lot of people that even if you mention their names, people be like, who is that? I'm like, you don't know who that is? Do you not read books? Do you not? What are you doing in your spare time? Because I'm just absorbed. Everything paranormal, religious, just learning about everything that I possibly can so that I can help whomever to understand what they're going through.
Absolutely. I have thought about taking Voices Carry and putting together a registry of good, decent, trustworthy paranormal groups, and good, if someone needed to find good, decent information, they would have a registry to go through and look and find out, who was in their area, who could help them and stuff.
I've thought the same thing. That would be I've thought that same thing, that there should be a registry of good people that, and not only that, but those people that are pulled together. If you have something that you're not quite understanding, there should be a group as to what their specialties are, so that you can say, hey, listen, we can't do this.
Absolutely.
This is not, we don't have enough knowledge in this. Do you know, like, we're not just the people seeking out the groups, but the groups in themselves can say, hey, can you help us?
Yeah.
Because, in my belief, everyone needs help. You know,
Absolutely.
they can sound absolutely crazy insane. I've had those people calling us and they sound insane. And you're like,
Absolutely.
oh my Lord. But at the same time, what's happening to them is real. Might not, you can look at them and say, well, that might not be actually, but in reality, that's what's happening to them. You know,
Yes.
just the right person to be able to go in and do what they need to do to make this person feel better. You
Yes.
know, that's what it's about.
I absolutely cannot believe I'm saying this, but we are almost out of time. Do you have any last minute questions you need to slip in before we go? Because I mean, we're literally down to just a few minutes.
Go
No,
for it.
I can't believe that went so fast, you
I
guys. No,
know.
you guys answered a lot of questions. I hope everyone got to know more about y'all through my questions. I hope I did a good job.
Oh,
You
you
did a
did.
great job.
I'm very pleased.
We'll have to have you back as a co-host sometime.
Absolutely. That would be great.
That was
I tried.
fabulous. But yeah, you did a great job. You know, I don't know if we missed anything, but you know,
Hopefully I didn't talk too much.
no, it was good. It was a good show. We got to hear a little bit more about you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, you know, we've done this from time to time on this show, and I think
Not
we
with
should.
me.
No, not with you. This is the first time I've done it with you, but I think we should do it some more because I enjoyed it, and I can't believe how quickly the time went by.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my indication of whether or not we had a good show. If the time goes by quickly, that means that, you know, everybody was enjoying it, and it went
Oh
well.
yeah. You gotta hate it when you're like, oh my God, we have another 15 minutes.
I know it. Yeah.
God.
And believe me, there have been some of those.
Shut up already. Oh my.
Absolutely.
We love y'all for listening, and thanks for being in chat, and thanks to Karen for relaying some questions, and you know, we appreciate y'all for coming back.
Absolutely.
Next
So
week, I just have to say, next Tuesday, should I say
yes,
now?
I'm leaving that up to you.
Okay.
I'm leaving that entirely up to you.
Okay, so next Tuesday, it's my birthday, and I asked John Zaffis to be our guest. So next week, tune in and you get to hear me act all weird and weirdness and weirder than usual because you know John Zaffis is like he's like my paranormal hero.
Tune in next week because Amy's gonna be all flitter-pated. She's gonna be doing her ham dance stuff.
I might have a dance. Yeah, there might be a dance.
And if I could add something to that, Amy,
please.
On June the 5th, which is like 5 days after your birthday,
Yes.
that is the 5th anniversary of Voices Carry.
Wow.
And the very first guest we ever had on Voices Carry was John Zaffis.
Woo!
Perfect.
And perfect synchronicity, you guys.
Yes.
So it's like things are kind of coming together to be really, really cool. So
things are coming together.
Absolutely on the right path, the two of you, and I'm so glad that you guys are doing this. And I have to say that every week that I tune in, I learn so much about the two of you and your guests, and I love listening to you.
Thanks.
And I tell everybody about you guys, and everybody needs to listen.
well, thank you. We love you,
we appreciate that.
We love all of our listeners, and we have a very loyal fan base, and we thank each and every one of you. So I'm going to go ahead and close her out. This is Terry Todd reminding you that death is not the end of existence, nor is it something to be feared. There is life beyond the physical world. Be sure and join us next week for a very special show. Amy?
John Zaffis. We have John Zaffis next week. Yay, to celebrate my birthday. It's going to be a fantabulous day.
Absolutely.
Terry bringing the baby powder.
I sure will.
I knew she did it. We couldn't make it through a show without talking about baby powder. So.
Absolutely.
I had to.
Thank you all. Good night. God bless you. And we'll see you again right here next week on Voices Carry. Good night.
We'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Thanks for being here.